Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's school committee meeting. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Daryl, can you lead us out, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a consent agenda, the minutes from December 22nd, 2016, and oath to bills and payroll.
They're not next year's minutes.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Thank you.
I don't like to second my own minutes.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. All right, we have two sections in the agenda for interested citizens, one at the beginning of the meeting, one at the end. This is the beginning of the meeting. Any interested citizens that would like to speak on any matters before the school committee? Seeing none. Move right into recognition. We have our student representative, Olivia. Give us her update.
Okay, so we're going to start at Shaker Lane and move our way up this time, because Shaker Lane excitingly has things happening in the winter.
We didn't do anything in the spring.
No. January 18th from 6 to 7, they have their preschool information night. On January 27th is Shaker Lane's Winterfest, and February 1st is Global School Play Day. At Russell Street, February 2nd is their student staff basketball game at 6:30. LMS had their geography bee last Friday, and Jeremiah Farrell was the winner of their competition. Also last Friday, 100 sixth graders came out for the Kids Night Out, and this Friday the middle school is having their 7th and 8th grade dance. At the high school, mid-year exams are rapidly approaching us. Yeah, that's really the only exciting thing happening at the high school, and I'm not sure I can deem that exciting.
But you're smiling, that's good.
I'm not sure how much of that is like, yeah, let's go do mid-year exams versus like, there's some emotion somewhere, got to get through them.
You'll be on the other side soon. Other recognitions, in your package, I enclosed a letter from Department of Elementary and Secondary Education on our mid-year comprehensive coordinated program review. It's a rare occasion where school districts have a mid-year review and do not have any areas that they want us to revisit. And I was very pleased to find out that they don't have any areas that they would like us to revisit. And special thanks to our PPS director, Dr. Detweiler, and the special education staff for a job well done. Outstanding review. And for those of you in the special education field, that's quite a feat to have a letter from the coordinated program review branch that doesn't have some recommendation for us to consider. So thank you, Dr. Detweiler.
Thank you. They probably have to write a new letter. It's been a while since I said that already.
You never know. I just two more very short acknowledgments. As you know, we were set out on a venture to replace a number of fixtures at Shaker Lane School, and it wasn't as simple as just hiring somebody and having them replace fixtures. We had to go through a process, and we had other people involved, such as the DEP. Had to make sure that the fixtures that we were looking at met the new specifications, etc. So it took some time, but I have to tell you, considering all of the steps that we had to do to make this happen, I'm thrilled to say that the fixtures have been changed and everything is fine again at Shaker Lane. So special thanks to Steve Mark, our business manager, and Bill Marr. It's incredible that they were able to get somebody to come in during the winter break to do that. I mean, usually when you have people do that, you book them in the previous spring. And we were able to do that. The price was fair. We actually ended up spending less than we thought we were going to spend. So as a superintendent, I'm thrilled. And I'm also thrilled that we can put that in the back seat now and move forward with other things. So thanks again, Steve, for your hard work. This next item is with trepidation that I report to you that I received a letter from one of our principals this week. And I'd like to officially announce and on behalf of Principal Faraty that he has written his intention to retire at the end of this school year. On that note, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Rich for many, many years of outstanding service to our students and community. We've been blessed and are still blessed to have you as the leader of Shaker Lane School. You've seen the school through many, many changes and helped it evolve as the 21st century hit, and you continue to be a passionate educator and leader, and your passion lies in ensuring that every child that's in your school receives the education that they need to succeed. So on behalf of myself and the community and the school committee, thank you so much, Rich, for your dedicated service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. I think we'll have much more to say about that retirement as it actually approaches realization instead of just announcement. But thank you very much, and thanks for all the good years. And obviously, I think we said in the email that we saw, we'll start the search in February. It'll be good to have Rich still with us to help participate in that. And maybe we'll get lucky and be able to get that person in the building for at least a few weeks before Rich actually walks out the door last time.
That would be nice.
I've been fortunate to have been here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So for next meeting, if you would think about who would like to represent the school committee on the search committee, I'll be putting that on the agenda.
Right. And we'll do a typical search committee where we'll have representatives from the administration, the faculty, community members, members of the parents at the building and things like that.
We'll use the same search that we've used for years.
Yeah, good.
This works out really well.
All right. Is that it for recognition?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. A couple different presentations. We have one from the Fine Arts Boosters of Littleton, Steve Corelli.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to come and talk to you about Fable. Of course, Fable, as mentioned, is the Fine Arts Boosters of Littleton. We're a parent-led booster organization with 501c3 charitable organization status. It's a parent-led organization, of course. We're in our second year of operation. We formed summer in 2015 officially. And at the time, it was formed by a group of parents really who were interested in bringing the drama boosters together in a bit more of a formal organization. But when we sat down, we thought it would make more sense to create an overall arts boosters organization to give an opportunity for any of the arts programs with an interested group of parents to have somewhere to go to have a 501c3 charitable status, and they can just simply operate underneath Fable. So Fable operates as, in itself, as a parent organization for any other groups of parents who want to put together some kind of booster program for anything related to the arts. So in that vein, we have two active groups. We have the music boosters and we have the drama boosters. The music boosters had been in formal operation for several years, really, when Fable joined, and they had been operating under the athletic boosters, working with them, performing at the athletic events and such. And they moved into Fable, again, just because of the structure that we set up. So, and as I said, the charter allows for any of those arts-type programs to come in under our organization. Our primary need is, as any boosters organization would be, is to provide some kind of financial assistance to those programs, to improve the programs, help raise interest for those programs, increase the visibility of those programs within the community, to the students, to the parents, and to try to organize the parents behind those students to help manage those programs. Well, so far I think we're doing a pretty good job. It's been managed in the past really by a lot of parents who've just been doing the jobs that need to be done, really without a formal organization behind them. And this is really just to bring a little bit of organization to that. From Fable's standpoint, our parent organization, our biggest focus is recruitment, trying to bring more parents in to help support the programs underneath it. Those of us in the core Fable group, none of us just sit in Fable. Some of us are in drama, some of us are in music, some of us are in both. I myself have two kids. One is in band and drama, the other's in drama and chorus, so I've got a pretty extensive commitment to both of those for a few years to come. Of course, coordinate some of the recognition events such as the year-end banquets, help provide the awards, the pins, some jackets to the students to help recognize what they've done during their time in any of those organizations, and fundraising. I mean, all the boosters organizations, fundraising is a primary objective. And there are a number of events on both sides that we run to try to raise some funds for those groups. The music boosters, again, they've been in operation for a few years, previously under the athletic boosters. And they support both the middle school and the high school music programs, both band and chorus. Some of the things they've done, purchasing sweatshirts and polo shirts. If any of you have been to a football game, you've seen some of the sweatshirts that the band performers are wearing. Those are all provided for by the Music Boosters group, as well as the polo shirts you may have seen either at the 300 parade or other areas where the band is doing marching. All of those are provided by the boosters. We fund instrument repairs and instrument purchases. Recently, I think it was this year, in the past year, we wrote a grant for about $3,500 to purchase an instrument for the band program. That's our first venture into grant writing, so it's hopefully something we can continue as another way of bringing funds in. Financing a percussion camp that was organized by the band director. We provided some funds and some support to keep that going. And of course, every summer there's a band camp, just as the sports camps organized just before school starts up. The band has a similar event, and the boosters helps fund and support that as well. Last year and again this year, we're also helping to support a field trip to the Providence Bruins games, where the chorus will be performing on the ice, performing the national anthem. So it's a pretty fun event. I went down last year with my family. Hopefully I'll get down again this year, but there's a picture up there of a couple of the schools on the ice. It's pretty fun to see them watch. It's actually it's an entertaining night. They have bands in the stands all around from different schools. So at different points during the game, they'll stop and they'll focus on another school who's performing up in the stands or down on the ice. So if you have some time off and you find out what the date is this year, it's a pretty fun night to see some of the students out in action. Some other things that the Music Boosters have done, again, organizing the spring banquet. The Ice Cream Social fundraiser is something that's been run for as long as I've been in the music program in the high school, and we bring in about 250 students each year and raise a fair bit of money by selling the ice cream. Fundraising through some blanket sales and ornament sales, which we do at the Holiday Bazaar, as well as assist the music department in fundraising activities, event organization. There have been a number of events that they've done. So we recently went to Disney, I think every year. Every 3 years, the band goes down to Disney, and the boosters do a lot to help organize that, even provide some chaperones as necessary. It was another fun event. My wife insisted on taking my family down for that one. So. And on the Drama Boosters side, the Drama Boosters is a formal group. We're just starting our second year. Of course, again, all of the activities that the Drama Boosters are doing had been managed by more or less the same group of parents in the past, but we've come together a bit more formally. And actually getting the 501c3 charitable status was one of our first objectives in forming that into Fable. And again, we support both the middle school and the high school programs. You'll oftentimes see the same group of parents helping run things in the background at both of the schools. And previously, again, it was by a group of dedicated parent volunteers who'd managed all of that before. So it's similar types of activities, fundraising to help improve the program, bring in a little extra money to help enhance the program with bigger, hopefully better performances or shows. Obviously, the very popular shows, the royalties can cost quite a bit more to get the scripts, and our hope is to start getting into things that are bigger, more modern, more exciting for the kids, just to raise their excitement about it and their enthusiasm. Small steps. We're kind of getting organized at being organized is kind of what the first year has been about. Just getting ourselves into the routine so we can get that done easily and move on to bigger and better things. So, of course, playbill development, ticket sales, concession sales, those are the big pieces of things that we've done in the past and that we continue to manage. So again, supplemental funding for bigger and better productions, trying to increase the visibility, bring it down to the earlier schools, get them interested and excited, get them out to the shows, to get them into the program and try to keep it growing and keep it working. I personally, particularly when I came into the Littleton community, was pretty surprised at the depth of the arts program that our school system has to offer, given the size of the community. And hopefully I can help keep it that way with the help of the other people involved. Okay. So, and really that's it. It's nothing, probably nothing too surprising. It's very typical booster organization, I think. Again, we're kind of very early in our life cycle, but hopefully you'll see bigger and better things coming out over the next few years.
Great, thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions?
No, this is just great support from the community on the various programs, and really appreciate not only you and the parents that are all working to organize this, and then all the efforts of the community to help make the donations and the funding for it available. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I think you hit on it. You said some of this stuff was happening anyway, but it was more informal. And what this kind of structure allows more likely to happen is a continuity of experience for the kids year by year by year. Because you can set the standards in place, the expectations, people that come in after the next generation that comes after this one will have a playbook to follow that will give us a lot more likelihood that the kids are going to get the same level of experience. And you already talked about how while you were doing some things, you've ramped up the ambition level of what you want to try to do for the kids, and that's great. So from a school committee perspective, knowing that this kind of thing is more formalized really makes us feel good for the kids that are coming through year by year by year, so we really appreciate it. And wish you the best of luck, and anything you need from us, just let us know. And if you want to come back every couple of years and let us know how you're doing, that would be great.
Sure.
So, thank you, Steve, appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 8th grade Washington DC trip, annual highlight.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the 8th grade team to talk with you briefly and ask permission for the 8th grade class to travel to Washington, D.C. again this year. I just want to highlight a few pieces of information from the document that was included in the packet. This year, the Washington, D.C. trip would take place in May. I believe the specific dates are the 22nd through the 25th. The 8th grade Washington trip has become an integral part of the 8th grade experience, providing students with educational and social learning experiences that can't be duplicated in the classroom. The students, while on the trip, visit the U.S. Capitol, Library of Congress, they tour the Holocaust Museum, they lay a wreath on the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington National Cemetery, they visit the Lincoln and Jefferson Memorials and the Smithsonian Museum. And this year they'll be adding a trip to Gettysburg on the return trip home. Additionally, students experience social and personal learning experiences that, as it's often their first trip away from home, away from their families. They have to follow a busy tour schedule. They share rooms with 3 other peers, and they have to treat somber and serious information with deep respect and maturity throughout their trip. Students have reported that the trip has been a very important part of their middle school experience. So I'm here tonight to ask permission for this trip to take place.
Any questions or comments about the trip this year?
No, I've been here and seen it every year for a few years now. But again, I'll make the standard request that it would be nice to have the students come in after the trip to give us some kind of readout of what they learned and experienced during the trip would be, I think, tying it back to the committee of the educational pieces of it would be great.
Of course.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the DC field trip from 22 May to 25 May 2017.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Thank you. We appreciate all the effort that goes in. It's a huge undertaking, and the staff at the middle school recognizes how valuable this is to the kids and how much it means to them, and you guys really rally around it year after year. So we really appreciate that. And, you talked about how the kids do enjoy the social aspect of it, but at the same time, the staff strikes a nice balance with them, making them understand that, this is some significant things that they're going to see and evaluate, and they should be taking to that appropriately. You guys do a good job with that, so
Great.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, old business. Continue discussion on the one-to-one high school Chromebook initiative.
Last meeting, we had a presentation from our tech team, and we wanted to bring it back to this meeting. Daryl Baker was unable to
We
attend
only
that
had 3
meeting.
members
so
last time, we were up to
so
4.
What we're
Get a full house, but-
hoping to do is answer any questions that you may have since the last time we met. And also, we're requesting that there be some type of formal motion, if you're ready to do so, to support the one-on-one laptop program in grades 9 and 10, starting with 2018.
Are there any questions, or we had a pretty good discussion about it last time, but Daryl, you
I have
were
a
there.
few. I watched the video of the last meeting there, and just had a couple of things I'd like to, actually one, but when we get into the fee structure, I'll ask about that. I know we deferred the discussion there. So I don't know if it's I think it's more than just a district policy about filtering software for student computers in the schools. When the equipment goes home, what kind of filtering capability is remaining on them at that point? I saw there was some kind of administrative software, but I wasn't sure if that was just for management of the system or if that included other capabilities.
So we're looking at a product called Securely. So it's a cloud-based web filtering service, and that basically is deployed through the Google Apps admin console. It's a user service, and that basically will provide the same type of secure browsing environment that we do at the school. We'd be able to customize and control that when they take the device home. It redirects the DNS through, or it redirects the DNS that the Chromebook is using through the filtered service that Securely offers. So
What was the name of that?
it's called Securely, and I think it's on the, I think there's even, and they have a great website that can answer. The link may
No,
even
that's
be on
fine.
there.
I just couldn't quite catch
It's
the
spelt a
name.
little funny, though. It's, I think
No,
it's
that-
S-E-Q,
Because
S-E-C-U-R-L-Y.
some marketing guy spelled it, that's why.
Yeah.
There it is, it was backward. Securely cloud-based.
Web filtering, yeah. It's $6 a user a year.
Okay.
And we've talked to some other districts who have been really happy with the product, so.
Okay. No, that was the only thing that I missed that nuance in the presentation there. So it was easy, a little softball. But I did enjoy the presentation. I thought it was very complete there also, so.
Before we entertain a motion, I had 2 questions. Obviously, the fee structure, we're going to talk about in a minute. Before we get there, did we come to a consensus on what the schedule was? Because I think there were 2 proposals for the rollout of the one-to-one program, and I don't believe we came to a consensus.
Can we just take a look at that? Do we have that up there?
Option 1, option
Yeah.
2. So,
I think we came to a consensus that we liked the idea in general, it's just the details, I think, is what we're.
And we did discuss it. I think that really the financial impact is, it's the same total dollar amount. It's just a question of cash flow. So the first option is what? That we would,
Right, so we were looking at the first option, trying to roll out the program for 9th and 10th graders next year.
okay.
We felt it was significant to do a 3-year plan because we have identified that within 3 years, all of our current Chromebook inventory will be out of date. So that's why we were really trying to create a 3-year plan. So it's really either roll it out to 9th and 10th next year, or roll it out to 10th next year, and then the year after, we would do 9 and 10.
So we would get the class of, sorry,
Yeah, so,
2021 and 2020
Yeah.
next year.
yeah,
Then 2022 and then 2023 as they come into the building.
yes.
Versus
Yes,
just
yes.
doing the class of 2020 next year.
Right.
And then we would do, what would we do the second year? Would we do the
Then-
9th in, or 2021 and 2022?
So if you go to option 2, Steve, this, option 2 is a little bit funky because we're
Right.
saying, let's give it, next year, we would give it to the class of 2020, the 10th graders. The following year, we would then give it to the class of 2022 and the class of 2021. So that would be the 9th and 10th graders that year, so the juniors.
So I have a question, independent of the cash flow piece, are we ready to roll this out next year?
We
You know,
are.
if cash flow wasn't a concern.
Yeah, we've worked hard on, providing professional development for our teachers, and our students have become extremely proficient in using technology in middle school and actually prior to middle school. So in terms of skill sets, I feel we're in a very good spot to roll this out. We're very cautious. I mean, for the past 3 years, it's been on my radar, having come from a system that was a one-on-one system. And I knew that the district had to be ready for something like this. You can't force it. You have to prepare for it. And I think we're very prepared. Dr. Harrington did a survey with staff, and I believe about 80% of them that were surveyed were excited about the venture. You're never going to get 100%, and we're certainly not insinuating that every minute of the day a computer will be open and a student will be using it. It will be used on occasion, or for a lot of times, more correctly, when the use of the computer enhances what's happening in the classroom and hence the learning environment. So it's interesting, if you talk to our middle school students now, the majority of them are using electronic organizational tools. That's where their files are. The days of the big binder and the flipping through the pages for the most part is gone. A lot of our teachers starting the middle school are using Google Education for their assignments and a lot of other activities that they're doing in their classrooms.
Yeah, it was mainly in terms of making sure, because if we're ready for it, I'm kind of for moving out on it, because in a year from now, you may want to need to reevaluate the whole approach, because technology is not going to be static. Probably by the time we finish this first rollout for this set of classes in three or 4 years, there may be a different plan coming on, and
Right.
we can never catch the technology. It's going to be changing there. I think realistically, the students are transitioning more towards a digital age than some of, my paper notebook here.
I'm using a bit of paper tonight myself.
On it there. But I want to make sure we're ready for it as a district, that we don't roll out a program and then not be ready to execute on it.
And, I've certainly given my take on it, and we have the principal and our two senior technology people with us today, so I'm going to ask them the same question. Julie and Natalie, do you feel the same way I do in terms of readiness to roll out the one-on-one program?
I do, and I think students, absolutely. I feel like, especially looking at what the middle school's tech skill set is, I think that they're looking for that. I think we've done a lot of PD. I think we've come a long way with Google Apps, and I think people are really seeing the benefit that can have in an education environment. So I feel confident and comfortable with this. So
Yeah, I absolutely do as well. We've done a myriad of new things and education for all of our staff for the past 3 years, between the Google Summit we've had and professional development for everybody, from administrative assistants up to principals, up to central office. We've really worked hard to make sure people are comfortable with the technology. And this is such a great device that is reasonably priced, that is quick and easy. You turn it on in 5 seconds and it's on Wi-Fi. So we've really worked hard as a group to make sure people are comfortable and happy and ready to go. So in my opinion, yes.
I agree. We are ready. We made a compelling presentation, I think, right before the holiday break about the readiness and willingness of the staff and certainly the students. I think we feel very confident that the students are ready to embrace the technology. Survey results and discussions with faculty over the last 2 years have certainly revealed that some teachers are less willing and less ready. But we do, with approval tonight, I think, or at least the motion to start moving toward the adoption in the summertime when we would be preparing the devices for the start of school in September. I think with that in mind, we still have, it's January, so we still have the second semester to prepare the staff, who engage them in conversation about it. Because, like Kelly said, you're not going to necessarily have 100%, but I wanted to be really open about acknowledging that. There's not, it's not every single faculty member who's looking forward to a Chromebook in their classroom, because they have set routines they've established, especially veterans. And I want to speak to that opinion in the building. But through discussions with our school leadership team made up of teachers and curriculum coordinators is excited about this. We've had conversations, open forums with the faculty at large, with even the previous tech director about this. So this has been something that's been in the works at the high school for years. And so folks knew this was coming. It was a matter of being able to match the resources with the preparation. And we are at that point. So we're ready to launch this summer. We're excited about it. And we look forward to your endorsement of our proposal.
We have been very strategic about our approach and have spent years getting where we are. And I really want to commend Julie and Natalie and also Mike McEachran, who helped us through the past before he relocated. They really helped put us in a good position, and not only at the high school, in all of our schools. And they've done a phenomenal job getting us ready for the next part of our journey. One other thing that we really need to discuss as well before we would entertain a motion is in order to do this, we've incorporated a $50 user fee, student user fee, and part of that money would go towards the purchase of the computers, and another portion would act as the pot of money that we use to repair computers that had the unfortunate experience of breaking down during that time. At the end of the journey, the student's journey, they actually take the computer with them as well. We've spent a lot of time talking about life expectancy of technology last meeting, so I'm not going to go into that again, but it's just the reality of today. So the $50 fee, though, is an important part of this discussion, because it does give us that little extra that we need to see this through, because you have to remember, and I know you do, we have 3 other schools that we also need to take care of as well in terms of replenishing technology through time.
Now, if a student opted out of the Chromebook and had their own device, then the $50 fee would be waived.
That's correct.
No
Yes.
requirement in terms of anything else that you were getting in terms of supporting that device would require the use of the fee. So we'll waive it outright. And the numbers that we saw in terms of the expectation of the expense year by year, that assumes everybody getting a Chromebook. And if there's a certain percentage that don't, that number would go down.
That is everybody. We added a buffer of 5.
Okay.
Because as new people would come
Right.
into the district,
Yeah.
we did add 5 was our typical number. So it's a high number, yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see what people decide about that. There are some households that may decide that they don't want a Chromebook, or they already have a Chromebook, or, they have a laptop that they like better, whatever it is. I know that you guys talked about, though, there would be expectations about a keyboard and et cetera, so it would have to be a legitimate device that's able to legitimately take advantage of what we're proposing educationally. But I'd be curious to see. So those numbers that we were looking at are assume 100% give out, which may or may not be the case.
And this is a very sustainable plan over multiple years looking forward, so I'm very comfortable with it as well.
No, the one big change over the years now is schools that were looking at laptop programs 5 or 6 years ago, where the cost of entry is just so much
greater than what I mean, these are actually cheaper probably than some of the phones that some of the kids are carrying around.
And we talked about that at the last meeting, how there's a certain level of technology that has become disposable. Whether that's good or bad is certainly up for debate overall. But, I think you're right, and you said it earlier, a few moments ago, that in the next 3-year wave, it might not be a Chromebook, it might be a competitor to the Chromebook but I think that the cloud-based aspect of delivery of educational materials won't change that dramatically. It'll be the access methodology that could evolve. So I think we'll be okay in terms of the infrastructure. We certainly won't have to abandon that. I don't see that as a very high likelihood. As a matter of fact, I see it as an almost negligible likelihood that we'd have to abandon the entire infrastructure. But it will be interesting to see how that plays out.
And we'll continue to adapt as we have.
So actually, the infrastructure, do you mind if I
Yeah.
so I think with the upgrades that we did, we will have sufficient Wi-Fi capacity throughout the schools for going from whatever number of devices to 500 devices.
We'll be increasing our bandwidth though.
Okay.
But
But all the Wi-Fi capability within the school is
Yes.
sufficient at this point?
Yeah, we're in the process from 150 up, 150 down, middle
Yep.
school and high school, and then going forward 300 up, 300 down.
Yeah, no,
But
I
the
just meant in terms of the
capacity
number
is
of
at-
access points.
Yes,
Yeah, right,
access
yeah.
points and the
Yeah,
hardware,
figured,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, well, no, that goes just back to the whole capital plan.
Yep.
And then I didn't get a chance, I like us projecting out the multiple years in the capital budget, because I'd like to see that consistently across all of our pieces there. For the programs that need standard computing, though, that don't, like some of the physics programs, some of the fine art, the digital art pieces there, they still need standard PCs, and that, we're not diminishing those investments in,
No.
excuse me, attention to their life cycle needs.
Good question, and no, we're not, and most of them are Macs, but we do have some PC labs still in existence. So we've taken all that into account, and it was a great exercise, because when we started to acquire technology 4 or 5 years ago in the district, we had the tech plan, so to speak, and then in order to get up to speed, principals were finding ways to inject more money into their operational reallocation of budget to purchase technology. So it was never just the technology budget, and then all of a sudden we found ourselves in a place where our lifespan of our Chromebooks was going to hit us and,
Yep.
and became an issue. So we managed to work all that out, and we feel very good about where we're at. And I also have to say it's really nice for our students in our community to have an idea of what specifications we're looking for in a computer. During the winter break, I was, as you know, visiting relatives, and I ended up shopping for computers, and you know how I feel about PCs, and they wanted PCs. And it was an interesting experience, because there were no specifications in terms of what they were going to be used for, and so you're kind of left guessing. Do you spend $700 and get something that will last 4 years, or do you go up to the $1,200 level and are you going to get more out of it? So to me, it would just verify the importance of making sure that we give our community and our students what we feel is necessary in a computer in order to do what needs to be done in high school and beyond.
And I'll just add that, this is part of an overall vision for technology integration at the high school to enhance instruction. One of the areas, Darrell, that will be will be emerging as a need will be the replacement or upgrade of the digital media lab at the high school adjacent to the library. We do anticipate that. That's something we knew was coming, but we don't see it as necessarily having to compete with this. It's just part of our existing hardware and resources.
I had a question about the, sorry.
Oh, no, I just want to make sure we're in a position that all of our tech needs are being planned in terms of the thing here, because, I don't want to hear from parents later, it's like, yeah, we did this program, and now the computers in the digital media lab are useless for, for things there. When are you going to take care of that? And I don't want to
Has to be
say,
built into
I
the
didn't see a
budget.
plan that addressed that.
Yeah.
And it's important, though, Darrell, that you realize this.
Yeah.
I mean, no plan is perfect,
No, no.
because there's not an endless amount of money, but I feel that the plan that we're recommending we roll out will take care of our needs. I mean, would it be nice to have another $50,000, $60,000 a year? Of course it would, but we need to be realistic.
Yeah, no, I think it's one thing to say we would be shifting the focus from these systems to this, or
is a different statement than making no statement at all. You know, I just want to know which way we're talking about. Yeah. And plans do change.
Alex, have a question or comment?
Yeah, Steve, could you pull up the slide with the projected instructional device costs, the grid there? And I believe this is the existing costs for the Chromebook carts and other Chromebooks we have in each school.
Yep.
Presuming we do nothing, which is not our intent, but if, you know, all things remaining equal, this is what we would be spending anyway. So that's about, at the high school, just for the high school Chromebooks, that's an average of about $35,000 a year for the Chromebook carts. To get, for option one that we're considering tonight, it was about an average of $34,250. So within $1,000 of what we're spending already.
That's a really good point.
So my question is, why do we need the fee, which is $25,000 a year? If we can just move from the Chromebooks, because we're not, to Daryl's point, we're not abandoning the Macs or the PCs that we have in the labs. This is just the Chromebooks that we have already. If we're shifting from the cart model to a one-to-one model, and it only costs, actually, looking at these numbers, it's less $1,000, but I'm sure that number will go up or down as we get used to it. But within $3,000 of this mark, I feel like we can be pretty confident on. Why do we need a fee for $25,000 when we're paying $35,000 already, and we expect to pay $35,000 if we implement this? I don't see why we need to subsidize it with a fee.
That we're able to do that because we're incorporating the fee into the entire, process. You have to remember we're purchasing, and I know you do, but we're purchasing more than Chromebooks, so this, it extends beyond Chromebooks. We can only afford so much money for Chromebooks a year, and we're going to a one-on-one 9 to 12. And that fee adds to the insurance component that we'd otherwise be paying, and a portion of it would go to support the purchase of the computers. But it's necessary in order for us to be able to have money to replace those other items as well as we move forward.
Can we just hold on? Where did you get the $25,000?
$25,000 was 500 devices at a $50 fee per year. So that's $25,000.
That'll take 4 years to hit.
Yeah, you'll take 4 years.
You pay the $50 fee once or every year.
Every year.
So if you pay, there are 500 devices, and you pay, actually only 450 of them will be used because the rest are our loan, or the devices that we'll have on hand if someone.
More like 130 devices though, not 500, just so per year.
So if there are 450 students, give or take, with these devices paying $50 a year, that's around about.
It's about $5,000 a class per year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
$5,000, so it'd be like $20,000. Once we get up to four.
Yeah, it's a gradual buildup.
But they're paying it every year.
No, it wouldn't be 20,000.
It would be, no, it would be 50,000, sorry, it would be $50 a year. So if I'm a freshman, 4 years later, I have spent $200.
Yeah.
So if every student is paying that every year, that would be about $20,000, give or take, a year that we take in our fee.
Yeah. It's $50 a kid at roughly 100 kids a class is $5,000 a year. Once we ramp up, we have all 4 classes at the high school, it'd be $20,000 a year coming in.
And so my question is, because we're not going to continue the Chromebook cart program at the extent it is when everyone already has a Chromebook. We will have some that we loan out to kids when their battery dies or whatever happens. But for the most part, we're not going to be spending $32,000 a year. That's an average of $35,000 a year on the Chromebook cart replacement. Why do we need to get $20,000 a year for making it a one-to-one program? If there was a fee of, for insurance purposes, that's a good point. But for insurance, you generally want to spend about 10% of what the device is worth, right? And we don't expect more than 10% of our devices will need complete replacing, I would hope. So then why would you have a $50 fee instead of, a $15 fee? I guess my question is, we're already spending the money, we're diverting it to this other program, which is a great idea, I think. My question is, why do we need the additional $20,000?
Hold on a second. I would, instead of answering this on the fly, you bring up a good point. And I think that there's a clear consensus that the school committee is going to support this program in one manner or another. So in terms of getting, the formal vote, which it will be necessary and certainly we should do, I would rather get that question answered.
Offline and come back.
You let them take their time to quantify, because I'm thinking about it in terms of, it's not just the device. It's the infrastructure, it's software to support the device, whether it's on the device itself or administrative software. So I would like to see you guys go back with Alex's point, which I think is perfectly valid and worth analyzing, very much so, and think about how you would show to us why, and maybe as you go through the analysis, you'll come back and say, you're right, $50 is maybe not the right number, but if it is, it is. And don't go back and say, geez, I think they're balking at $50. We're not necessarily balking at $50. We're balking at, we just need to quantify why that's the right number, and you can show that to us.
What's the value added over what we already have?
Right.
So if it's support staff that we expect to need additional support staff, okay, just let us know. If it's software that we're already spending this year, that's less of a reason to have it. But if it's new stuff that we're not doing now, that adds up to $50 or $20,000 a year, that makes sense to me. I'm just not sure what the number is.
I mean, the other component is, and we'll certainly come back with that, but we are encouraging BYOD. And
Important distinction.
yeah, very important distinction. And in order to do that, you have to create opportunities for that to happen. And we never once, since we've been talking about one-on-one, ever really talked about a self-supported system without some other revenue. I mean, that's never been part of my discussion with our tech team. We always felt that we would be charging some fee. There are very few districts that don't, but the majority are charging some sort of fee for the use of the computer.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say to go back and look at it because, because right now we went into the program even with the carts on some of them for multiple years because we couldn't afford to buy 500 of them in 1 year. So there's some other math going on here. I think that's
True.
That's missing from just the raw presentation, and I think it would be best to go back because I see what you're saying there, Alex, but at the same time, I know we couldn't afford to equip the whole school out of our capital budget, so there's something missing in the equation here on it.
That's another question that when we come back, I think I feel sold on the programmatic need and the educational benefit. I'm not worried about that. I think for me, the discussion we have at the next meeting is just about the numbers and where it's coming from. So it'd also be interested to see how much of it is capital versus operational, because that's an excellent point. And would the plan be to move it from capital to operational or vice versa? And that discussion, I think, would be valuable as well.
All right.
To consider. Thank you.
Is there anything else we want to talk about in the context of the discussion
Maybe just in
tonight?
terms of thinking about it, because when all of us are here, we'll talk about the fee specifically, and maybe just in terms of thinking about the fee aspect of it. You talk about a reserve for repairs and maintenance and stuff. I would like to make sure we keep that money partitioned so that it doesn't end up in our operating budget. So if we find out that our repair costs or maintenance cost is half of that, we can adjust the fee appropriately. I don't want to lose track of the money.
With the way we do it with the cafeteria.
Yeah.
You might want to think about an actual revolving fund.
And not using it for staffing or any other, a designated purpose for that funding there. And then, just throw that out. And then, again, I'll bring it up when we talk about the fee. If we do go with the fee, is there, I get concerned about fees getting added into the thing there. I also look, as I have a student, this list of supplies they should be buying. We hopefully will be feeding back into that process so that we're not, hopefully it may alleviate some other supplies that are in those recommended supplies that go home in the beginning of the year, again, so that we be sensitive to the cost, the direct cost associated to the parents.
Yeah, and don't lose the point too. I think one of the things that we've talked about is the idea would be that they would walk out with the device at the end of the fourth year. Now that's a little self-serving on our end because we would feel that we would probably, if they didn't walk out with it, But on the other hand, we would use a certain percentage of them for a period of time, whether it was months or another year. So there is something to be said that if we didn't charge the fee, we probably wouldn't also be able to say, well, keep it. At that point, I would say, well, no, I think we should keep the device and squeeze as much out of it as we can in order to drop these operational costs and capital costs down year by year. So that's something to keep in mind, too.
Yeah, it was more of a subtle request that, I know sometimes specialized notebooks and other things are requested by some of the teachers. This might be an opportunity to
Scientific
revisit
calculator,
that.
whatever it is.
Kind of thing there, so that the parents know what they're, that we're also considered their out-of-pocket cost.
If the life of the device is 4 years, roughly, maybe 4.5, maybe 5, that's kind of pushing it. I'm not sure that we would want to keep them anyway. Maybe for the first class, for the sophomore class, we could get
There
another
may be
year out of them for the
other legal
freshmen.
things, though, that if we don't go for a purchase-type plan.
We also necessarily wouldn't want to incur the cost of
Yeah, no,
recycling them, because that's expensive.
I think there's we would technically, if we didn't have a rent-to-own kind of program there, we would have to surplus it through standard Massachusetts surplus law.
Exactly.
Which is putting them out to bid and things like that. We can't just give them away.
Actually, they would be offered to the town departments first. as part of policy.
So I think there's a lot of other details that go in.
We could offer a $5
30
fee or something at that point. The concern is,
No, we have, the mass procurement law gets in there.
I mean, we could have a $5 fee for their senior year or something. There are ways around it, because I just want to make sure that we're not baking in a fee we don't need.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no, absolutely.
No,
There's no question.
But what happens to the computer at the end of it is a separate thing, because I think we have to watch the legal aspects of it.
And also realize we're able to operate with a skeletal technology staff because we're not letting our equipment get run down. If we started trying to get more out of our machines, we would have to have a lot more staff than we do, so it's a balancing
I mean, when we actively moved away from trying to get the 12 years out of a PC.
Yeah, no, you're right, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Kind of thing
It
there.
was a lot of work. Okay, thank you, it was a good discussion. We're gonna get there, there's no question about that, so just.
Yeah, I mean, I'm supportive of the program, and now it's a matter of just
It
the
actually,
final details.
the question that Alex asked that kicked it off, let's just quickly get that. I personally am backing the first 2 classes the first year.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
You know, it's just a cash flow perspective, and the difference isn't really backbreaking in terms of the overall budget. I don't want to be cavalier about that, but nonetheless, the benefit, I think, of having a class get it for all 4, an extra class get it for all 4 years is well worth the fact that we're going to spend that $30,000 extra dollars in year 1 rather than in year 2, because we're going to spend it. But I would rather spend it early and let them have the full 4-year benefit of advice.
It would be interesting also, I mean, I think, the town's cash flow right now is probably, at one of its peaks versus maybe in a couple of years when some of the other borrowing things start kicking online, that the capital might be squeezed a little bit more. So, that would be something to probably talk to the finance committee about. But I'm supportive of it rolling out next year, both classes.
Great. Okay, thank you.
For that first year, there's still Chromebook carts around the school, because I know a lot of kids in my grade, like, we either have laptops at home or like we don't, and there's like a hard drive like in the house, but like most of the kids in my grade that I know have laptops don't bring them to school every day, because at this point, most teachers, their classroom setup isn't designed around, you have a Chromebook, we're gonna go on and like turn the skeleton upside down and see what it looks like from different angles. So I feel like, because I like the idea of the one-to-one, and I feel like a lot of kids in my grade would have been like, why couldn't we have had the one-to-one? That would have saved me so much time when I've had to stay after school a little bit or something like that.
Yes,
But-
there'll be 255 Chromebooks and carts next year.
But what's happening throughout time, Olivia, is those Chromebook carts are reaching their life expectancy.
Oh, no,
So eventually,
well aware of
they will not
that.
So you guys keep staying after school and using the darn things.
No. Normally when we're after school, it's like, okay, I have 10 minutes to myself before sports, I have 10 minutes before clubs.
All right, great discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That does it for old business. we're going to circle up to new business, December cost center analysis.
Yep, so the report's in your packet, it's on the screen as well. We're on track, we're actually a little light on our year-to-date expenditures compared to where we are in the fiscal year. We attribute most of that to the fact that we have, through just a timing issue, we have additional circuit breaker funds that we have to spend this year more than anticipated. So we're charging into that circuit breaker fund, so we spend all that down instead of the appropriated fund at this point in time, but we'll catch up, I'm sure, as the year goes through, so. Nothing really to be concerned about. Again, custodial overtime is an issue we're watching. We're tracking our out-of-district tuition costs to make sure we're on target with those. We've been fortunate so far on the weather and lack of snow for this winter so far. So again, I think we're in good shape, and I'd be glad to answer any questions or provide additional information.
Knock on wood about the lack of snow.
Yeah, we're not shoveling roofs, so.
This time, 2 years ago, we thought the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm okay.
All right.
All set?
Yep, thank you. All right, I just moved to here just so I can take better use of the microphone. What I want to do now is go over the presentation that I gave this past Saturday at the Budget Summit, where the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen invited all the department heads to present their initial budget requests for FY 2018. So we had been working on the Budget Subcommittee on this and got it done and presented on Saturday. So I'm basically going to give almost the exact same presentation. I think we'll have a little bit different discussion than they had. They basically, it was well received. A couple questions on, the items, but there was really no debate on, whether it's too much or too little, or how it's going to fit into the overall budget of the town yet. There was no information on what the projected growth was, tax revenues, aid from the state, nothing like that transpired at that meeting. That's all to come. So really, it was just an initial presentation of an initial request. So what we presented was the different drivers. You can see here the things that add up to about $1.15 million. And you can see that there are annual expected increases, such as our contractual salary increases, as well as some sped increases, but there's also items related to operations outside the classrooms, supplies, materials, and staffing requirements that we feel we need to meet a growing and changing student body, and also a proposal related to full-day kindergarten that make up the rest of the request for an increase of $1.15 million. If you go to the next slide, we'll kind of break them down a little bit in buckets. The salary increase, as always, is the most significant driver and accounts for over 50% of the total increase. The increase in sped tuition and transportation is definitely lower than it has been in past years. However, I reminded the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen on Saturday, it's always important to keep in mind that sped expenses can change during the budgeting process, and even during the school year when we're actually spending the budget. But at the moment, this is what we are expecting based on our current student population receiving case and out-of-district tuition services. The next slide, we're looking at some of the operational costs that we think we need to increase. The custodial contract, we need to increase by $40,000. We had gone with a low bid process in past years, and we really were struggling to get a contractor in that could provide the services that we needed. And really, we weren't getting it. We were basically spending bad money. We were spending a lot of money, and we weren't getting the service that we really thought we needed. So when the contract came up, rather than going with a low bid process, we went to the state-approved vendor list and went with a custodial contractor that we feel is, we already know, we're seeing much better level of service and we're better off for it. But it did increase the cost by $40,000 over what we've been spending in past years. We've talked in the past about the projected water increases due to the just the increase in fees by the water department. The cafeteria staff, right now, they're below market rates on the wages that we pay them, and we feel it's necessary to address this and try to keep our continuity and be a fair employer in that regard. The supplies and materials, we've talked about this year by year. We flatlined them with so much, and we're really trying here to make an effort to alleviate a little bit of pressure at $2,500 a school. not long money, but try to increase that line item that we've been keeping flat year by year. In terms of what we're looking for additional staffing, based on our analysis of class sizes at Russell Street for the upcoming year, we feel we need one additional classroom teacher. The shared additional staff between Russell Street and Shaker Lane ELL teacher position is required as a result of an increased number of students requiring ESL, English as a Second Language services, which is a mandate that we have to provide. It's been on the books for a while, but because of our demographic in prior years, we haven't really had to fully staff this. Now we feel that we do. We're also seeing growing class sizes in number of classrooms at Shaker Lane and Russell Street. It's putting pressure on the, right now we have one gym teacher that splits between the two buildings, one art teacher that splits between the two buildings, one music teacher that splits between the two buildings for K through 2 and 3rd and 4th grade. The 5th grade does get some music help with Mrs. Bridge and Mr. Bergman coming down to help with the band and the chorus down there. But really, we're finding out that having one of each of those across those two schools is no longer really sustainable. It's putting a lot of pressure. The classes are getting bigger, and it's getting difficult to schedule the day appropriately. What we're proposing here with a $55,000 increase is to hire 2 part-time staff to do gym and art, or if we get lucky, 1 staff that can do gym and art, but we'll see how that works out. We also feel that we need a Title I math, a part-time hire to support students who need additional instruction in math at Russell Street and Shaker Lane. We're also looking for an assistant principal staff at the middle school. We've had part-time assistant principal in past years. When we went through the budget crunch a few years ago, when we made some reductions in staff levels, we let that position lapse and didn't fill it. But we talk about many times here at school committee that we're seeing additional responsibilities put on our administrative staff in terms of state mandated responsibilities such as anti-bullying programming, reporting on educator evaluation, and different things like that. And right now, we're starting to realize that if we don't add this position, we could very well see emerging problems at the middle school in terms of being able to balance the administration of the building, discipline, curriculum development, student achievement, and professional development, which really is all the things that we're asking one person to do in that building right now. And we have talked in the budget subcommittee in terms, we've talked to the administrative team that this may be something that we are thinking about in the other buildings as well. Right now, we only have one building that has a full principal and a full-time assistant principal. That's at the high school. So we'll have to see how this plays out year by year. But right now, we're looking to add that into the middle school. Full-day kindergarten right now is a tuition-based program. We're charging a little over $4,000 per family to attend full-day kindergarten, assuming that they go for each day in the school week. We're proposing that we move toward a tuition-free model over the course of 3 years. The idea would be that we would reduce the tuition that's being paid by about 1/3 over the 3 years. So in FY 2018, we would reduce the tuition cost by approximately $1,300. In order to keep the current staffing and service level, we would need to increase the budget by about $120,000 to make up for the reduced tuition revenue that we would be collecting because we reduced the fee. If we go down this road and this gets approved, the idea would be that each of the next 2 years after this, we would see the same type of annual increase in the operating budget as we, again, lower the tuition, and by the 3rd year, full-day tuition for full-day kindergarten would be tuition-free. That is what we're submitting for the appropriated budget or the increase in the operational budget. We've talked about the school department capital requests, and I submitted this to them, to the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom on Saturday. And I know Daryl's been working on the additional items that would affect the schools that would be submitted by the PMBC and explain that to them, and they understood that. So that's where we were after Saturday. I'm going to go sit back down and then we can have a talk about, this is the first time we presented this in open meeting. We've been talking about this at the budget subcommittee since the beginning of the fall. But this was the first presentation of this material to the other boards. And I think we should talk about how we think we need to proceed with that. You guys can start while I walk back.
Well, I wanted to start with a question, so you better hurry. How did they respond on Saturday to
Well-
the request?
Like I said, all they really responded was just asking a couple questions about, how do you think you're gonna need more teachers at Russell Street or Shaker Lane in the next couple of years? Really, nobody talked about whether, they felt like this was too much or anything along those lines. It was really, and that's been true year by year. At that particular forum, it's really just a presentation of what the initial requests are from all of the departments. And it's not designed to have a discussion about the validity or the viability of those requests. It really isn't. As a matter of fact, each of them, and the way they do it on the town side is it's your level service budget and your mission budget, which is what you would like to be able to do if you had additional funding. We don't conform to that exactly. But nobody's barking at them and saying, well, you can't have 5 more police officers. That's crazy. That's not what it's designed to do. As a matter of fact, it's designed to elicit, a longer-term picture of where we think we need to be department by department. So,
And an understanding of why those requests.
Right, exactly. The one thing that, they did say is, they were asking questions about class sizes and things like that, and I told them that because we would do it for our own purposes, we'll quantify that in more detail. Then that led to a question of, are we going to need to build more buildings or add on to the buildings? And I said, we've been talking about that too. That's a separate discussion than the FY 2018 operating budget, but it's certainly salient. And I told him that, we were talking about how we were going to go about doing that and how we would measure capacity and come up with some ideas about, rather than building a brand new building and acquiring land, would there be alternatives along the way? So there were questions like that, but it was a good discussion.
Did the town side folks tend to understand the programmatic needs and why we're asking? Not that they would necessarily be able to fund it or that they agree with it, but they're like, oh yeah, I totally see why you're asking for full vacay or a Title I math specialist.
Yeah, again, nobody was objecting to it, and as a matter of fact, there was Greg Schcmte, who's on the finance committee, was thinking about his 2.5-year-old son and where he would fall on the reduced tuition. He's like, he's going to get in that first year where there would be none. So, in terms of that, they're thinking about it from, they're all citizens of the town, all taxpayers and consumer services. So, they were all very supportive of the analysis we're doing. Obviously, I think they're going to have questions and they're going to want to see more detail about, why we're asking for this. And also, I think it's going to come down to, as we get into the weeds about how we're going to be able to afford this request and all the other requests, it'll be, if we can't do that, what would you do instead? How would you, make your request work? And we've seen that year by year. So, from the budget subcommittee, that'll be, what we would expect to start working on now that we've submitted this, is thinking about, well, how do we make it work? And I told them too, they didn't even ask about it, but I told them that we haven't really thought about where we are in our revolving funds, primarily circuit breaker and school choice, relative to this type of request. And that'll be the next step for us too. And they were fine with that. They weren't upset that they didn't have that information. Frankly, I don't think they expected it for that forum.
I want to say thanks to Kelly and to Steve and to you for going Saturday, of course, and presenting, but also for the work we've done as a budget subcommittee over the last several months. And the admins who, I remember early on in the process, were saying, this is what I need in my building. And that is different from the day-to-day work that everybody is doing, but it's very important. And I know Kelly has been working with the admin team on a long-range plan that we're not ready to publish just yet, but, a 3-year or so budget outlook that we might project. And this is very in line with that, but also very in line with what we have asked for the last 3 or 4 years, or at least going back through my tenure on the school committee. This is not, numerically speaking, an unreasonable or surprising request. And I think all of these issues we've been speaking about at the budget subcommittee level for long before this budget cycle, but also at the school committee level in different capacities. Nothing on here should come as a complete surprise to everyone. It
brings back one point that I made to them that I forgot to communicate to you guys, was that when we talk about the additional staff, I told them to keep in mind that it's additional in some respects, but it's also restorative in other respects, because specifically you look at the middle school principal position and the Russell Street classroom teacher, we had those positions staffed in previous years. So we're only really getting back to, now the middle school principal is more of a half-time role, and we're asking it to be full-time, so that's additive, but the idea of having an assistant principal in some capacity is not additive, it's restorative. And the same idea at Russell Street. The number of classrooms that we have teachers in will be really about where we used to be. We cut back. We're getting back to historically where we had been in the past, and they understood that.
Prior to FY13.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so I appreciate your comments about restorative there, but I think my preference is to keep the discussion focused on how it's benefiting the students there, because despite some of those staff cuts, the schools have excelled with those reduced staffing levels, so we want to watch. But we are starting to see an influx of more students, and the needs exactly, and the needs of the students are changing.
Right. We're not restoring because we want to, we're restoring because there's a need, there's a demonstrative need.
Yeah.
The number of kids that need part of the services.
I know, and I see it even with the PMBC, that they're just answering this very specific question of this year, but I still going to keep emphasizing, I think having that broader projection of where we're going, what our full cost suite is, will continue to enable us to have better discussions, with folks, so that when next year's number shows up and it's the same, we'll say, well, we told you it was going to be the same, but then if we could also say, no, see, it's already consistent with the plan that we projected out for you.
That bleeds into what Alex just said, where, we're trending the same way we've always been trending, but you're right, if we can trend that out now for 19, 20, 21, then it's even less of a surprise. And really, what should be happening is the number that we project out, is the farther you project, the less accurate inherently it's going to be, and we keep tweaking it.
It becomes refinements, not
exactly.
There. So this will be the 1.149 will likely show up in the next selectmen's budget update packet there.
Yep.
Okay, great. And then I see it for the budget planning purposes in the thing here, but we'll have a discussion, a full discussion on the full-day kindergarten plan at a future meeting.
Right, we can bring a few tables that we created and go over them with you, and that'll give you a better understanding of the direction we're heading.
Yeah.
Steve and I are still tweaking the 3-year projection in terms of operational budget, and then we can also present that at our next meeting as well. I'm still waiting for one principal to tweak the classroom capacity component. We should be ready for next meeting to present to you. In the end, the most logical way to do that was to take a look at our classroom sizes and see what capacity we had within those classrooms, and then look at our peripheral classrooms to see if we can potentially reorganize as we continue to grow. And that made the greatest sense in the end after we did all this other calculating. Common sense prevailed. The number of students in the classrooms you're using is the best way to go. So.
Okay. All right, anything else?
I know that districts grow and stuff like that, and with more kids, especially because I live on Neshoba right near the new development, and when I get out on my dad's house, which is over by Long Lake, bus is empty, we get to that new development, bus is almost completely filled, and then we get down my road, and that's fine for now, but my grandma lives in Maryland, in her town school district, they had a rapid rise of kids, and they're oh, we'll just build onto the building and add an extension, but all of the extra classrooms right now, and they have been for several years, are in trailers. So teachers' classrooms are set up in trailers, and they've been like that for 3 years.
Right. I think, that's the idea of projecting out, is that we can anticipate, when we think we're going to need to add it, so we can start 3 years ahead of time, and then not get caught short. we have to go trailers, it won't be there for that long.
Right.
Temporary classrooms. they're not
Temporary
trailers.
classrooms.
They're a little less temporary than,
The world
Olivia
is
has a
a
great
classroom.
point. When there's an upswing of residency in communities, it's not just one community, so you have more communities competing for the funds from the Department of Education. And so there is typically a wait period. Actually, I just had a conversation with 2 superintendents last week whose communities have decided to not wait for DESE to get on the approval list, and they're going to self-fund their new school, the new high schools that they're contemplating building, which is kind of a bit of a change in philosophy since I've been a superintendent. That's a big bill in this day and age to shoulder as a community, but it just goes to show you that in general there are a number of areas in Massachusetts that are growing quite quickly, and we're obviously involved in the growth, not as quick as some of the others, but definitely in a growth stage.
All right. There'll be much more to follow on the budget in the coming months. All right. 2017 high school graduating ceremonies.
Dr. Harrington.
I'll have a brief update for you tonight. At the last school committee meeting, we talked about holding the graduation at Schcmte Tech. And that was great, I think, pretty well. We have a pretty decent plan. We're very grateful for Schcmte Tech, the superintendent and the staff there willing to host us. We'll be able to have the graduation on the same Friday night as planned, June 2nd. We'd started a little earlier just because of the change in location and make sure there was adjustments, especially, we have a larger class this year too, so there'll be a few more diplomas to give out. I did get some feedback from parents and students and have now described that plan as a contingency plan, which we're grateful to have because we needed to have some type of plan with the construction planned for alumni around that time. We're just not sure the exact timeline when the construction will commence. I think we're projecting around April, maybe May. We're not exactly sure how that will impact, obviously, the middle school and Russell Street, but also graduation and any events that would be held there in the spring. It certainly will impact traffic once the construction begins and parking and things like that. So we need to have an alternative to alumni, and that's what prompted this inquiry with Neshoba, and we're grateful again that they're able to host us. We even have a backup plan. If it were to rain, we'd be able to assess the situation, potentially still have an outdoor graduation on Saturday after Neshoba's graduation. They graduate, I believe, in the morning, and then sometime in the afternoon or even in the early evening, we would have our graduation on the following Saturday, if the conditions were okay. The alternative is to go back to our traditional in-house graduation at the high school auditorium. We do have that booked for both Friday and Saturday night for graduation, but with a large class this year, there are certainly a lot of negatives to having the graduation inside. Of course, it was pouring. Everybody would understand the downpour. We'd have to have it inside. But with last time we had it inside was 2013. There were about 93 graduates. And this year we're on the plus side of 120 for graduates this year at the high school. So we have to have a plan because that ideally we want to have it outside because we would be very limited with the number of tickets we could provide, and there'd obviously be overflow for people who wanted to be on site in the cafeteria or the gym, but more likely the cafeteria to watch on big screen TVs that we'd be able to set up. So that's an issue for us. So I met with the student council president, the senior class president, and some other students who had strong opinions about having graduation at the high school. There are also parents who have contacted me who really do not want to have the graduation outside the town of Littleton, even though it's just right up the road, and they acknowledge they're grateful to Neshoba, but they would rather have it right on the high school campus outside on the field. The field conditions are not great, especially after spring sports have done some damage to the fields, but we certainly can host the graduation at the high school on the grass. So we're exploring that option and seeing how we would be able to provide for traffic. If we were to have graduation scheduled for June 2nd behind the high school on the fields, we would definitely have to make arrangements with probably nearby St. Anne's for shuttle bus for traffic, for parking. We'd also have to make some adjustments for handicap accessibility, and would likely to get additional golf carts to help transport people out to the field. I do not object at all as principal. I said that to the students and to the parents, and the superintendent and I have discussed this, to having the graduation at Littleton High School on the grass field. It just won't be, really nice conditions in terms of the same as the facility that Neshoba has. It's just not going to be as nice. It's really ease of access for anyone, especially handicapped folks, to be able to easily get onto the field and watch the graduation. We would have to make some adjustments. I'd have to talk to the business manager with this, because there'd be some additional cost. If we were to have graduation on the field, we'd have the folding chair cost. Our order for folding chairs would go up considerably, but I think it's something we could absorb, and if it's the wishes of the town and the graduating class to have that happen, we'll find a way. We'll also have to make adjustments with our stage if we do have the graduation on the field behind the school, because we'd need a higher air, a raised stage, so that the viewing would be easier and it'd be easier to take photographs. So those are some things we're looking at right now. I'm glad that we have a contingency plan, though, at Neshoba, but what's looking more and more likely is for us to come back and report to you that it may be at Littleton High School on the field behind the high school. I do get the sense that a lot of students would rather have it right at the high school. So that's my update.
When do you anticipate having a decision?
I want to make it fairly soon. I would like to get the word out. I think what we'd like to do is talk to the students. So I'd like to have a class meeting this month, perhaps right after the mid-year exams, and give a chance to talk to them about different options. I don't think they're aware of all the nuances. Of course, we don't expect them to have to worry about that. It's our job. But I would like to present them with some options and hear from them directly as a class. Well before then, I've already gotten a sense from the student council president and from the senior class president. They've done a lot of talking to different classmates, and their sense is that the students would prefer to have it at the high school. And I want to honor their wishes, because this is their graduation. It's their night to celebrate. So we have to look, as long as it's it's a safe setting, and we can ensure that, and we can accommodate everyone, and within reasonable cost, we'll try to make it the best night possible for them at the high school. That's where we're leaning right now. So it's a little bit of a different direction than where we were before the holiday break.
So most likely prior to the end of February,
I think, we'll know. I'd like to announce it before February break. That will give us adequate time to assess the whole situation, make a really thoughtful decision in terms of cost, in terms of just the suitability of the site, and then just get the word out to folks. People need to know, because they're making plans. They're buying plane tickets and things like that for some people. A lot of people travel into town just for that event. So we're not changing the date. We're just looking to look at, or really maybe the time by an hour, but we're looking at the location.
Do you know roughly what kind of budget impact we're thinking? Like $1,000, $3,000, $10,000?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know off the top of my head what the cost of the folding chairs would be and the multiplier.
The other thing I keep in mind is, and I have a couple of comments about this, is obviously it is the student's graduation, but it's also the family's graduation. I think we need to be very cognizant of making sure that the greatest number of people can be in the best comfort and enjoy the experience. And thinking about looking up versus looking down,
Yes.
and being able to take pictures and video and things like that, I think needs to be something that is given strong consideration. The other thing is you talk about the money, we'll absorb the cost. Well, it's $10,000, maybe we won't.
that's what I'm saying. If it's like a couple
But the other thing to
$1,000
keep in mind is I would like to know what the additional cost is, and, because the problem is that you're risking the weather.
Right.
So it's not just that you're gonna spend more, you're risking more, that you might not get the benefit of it. That's the thing to keep in mind.
That is right. And that's the thing where that's why we need the additional weeks to assess it. It's, just not say, yes, the students right away, because that's what the ones I've talked to want. I really need to present them with the cost differential, because as the chairman has said, there will be an increased cost, and we might be washed out that night and inside. And then all those chairs will have been set up in the morning. We'll have to make the call fairly early, too, if we're going to be outside, because we may have to decline the rental. There'll be some type of, I imagine, deposit to secure the chairs. But if we know, I had the good fortune last year of being really lucky on the call for the weather, and because it was looking fairly ominous throughout the afternoon, and then the sunshine came out right at graduation. But that's a call in the past where we've made the day of sometimes, if necessary. I prefer not to do that, but we held the call off, I think, till either the evening, the day of, I think, the morning of, we made the decision. This is a decision, if it's really looking even like a slight chance of rain. If we were in the situation we were in last year, we would have just called it inside. And, this year, if we're in that situation again, days in advance, because the forecast was pretty clear that it was going to be raining on Friday night, and then it changed. So true to New England.
I want to emphasize again about, it's about the visitors' experience as much as the students. I mean, I attended a high school graduation that was on a field. They had tents and chairs, and it was polite that we were there, but we couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
Especially when there's, 600, 700 other people around you, and you're just looking across the tops of everybody's heads.
This is a big moment of celebration for families. There's no question about it, and we're going to have to take that into consideration. So far, we haven't made any announcement that this is under review or anything like that. Officially, I'll send something out to parents very soon, probably tomorrow, to the senior class parents and the students, letting them know where we're at, giving them an update, because the rumors have going around, and I need to sort of get a handle on that. And so that's when the parent inquiries came into.
The other comment I would make is that we need to make the decision that we think is best. We're not going to placate to everybody.
That's right.
There's just no way. So the decision really has to be about what we think is going to service the community best. It's unfortunate that this particular class is going to have to go through this.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it was unfortunate that many other classes stuck it out at the old high school a lot longer than they should have had to. And then, and then when the middle school got built, and when the track got built, and when Russell Street got renovated, everybody gets put out to a degree when we go through an experience like this. And that's part of the shared experience of being in a community as well, is if, when it's your turn to take a hit, then it's your turn to take a hit.
Right.
Because it's for the betterment of the community overall, and that's why we're renovating alumni. So I think we just need to keep that in mind too.
We want to make sure that we acknowledge the quality of the facility at Schcmte Tech in terms of, and just the logistical, preference. It will be much easier for us there in a lot of ways, because they do their graduation right there. They have it down. We will meet, our administrative staff and team will plan graduation. We'll meet with them well in advance and go through all that. So we know we can pull it off successfully at Schcmte Tech with adequate parking and nice facility with really minimal cost impact. So that's on our minds, for sure.
I just want to put that out there. Ultimately, it is the administration's decision. This is not the school committee's decision. This, I think, this would fall firmly in the day-to-day operation of the district, so.
Thank God.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think, you've heard our concern.
We appreciate the input, and we'll make the best decision we can for the whole community.
I can vouch that there are rumors, not as many as there were at the beginning of the year, especially when alumni field's being redone. Wait, really? Yes.
They're not watching this meeting to see the.
No, I can. No, it was the most exciting thing. This one time when Mrs. Lord's daughter, my friend Hannah, was watching, and she, I came into school next day, and she's like, "You were on TV," and I'm like, "I know, it happens all the time." And she's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But a lot of them would prefer to have it here just because it's Littleton and they've spent all the time here. But because I come to the meetings and I engage in the conversations, I understand that Schcmte Tech is the better.
It's all about context. Lynn.
Yeah.
It's all about context.
Very true.
It's a judgment call, and I'm glad it's not ours to make.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. All right, one more item under new business, records action. access officers, the RAOs.
RAOs, with the adoption of the new public records law, one of the changes was that they developed a position called the RAO, Records Access Officers. The municipalities are required to officially appoint people within various departments. So the town, at one of their regular meetings, did have a motion for the town administrator and myself and Light and Water and police chief, fire chief, et cetera, to be tagged with the title RAO. And this, of course, was subject to school committee approval because the decision really lies in your hands as a school committee, not the Board of Selectmen. But it's nice to have a tidy package so that there's a flow chart at the town level, so I do appreciate the need for that. Some of you had expressed concerns to me about workload, et cetera, and typically how I view this position would be one of supervising what's going on and delegating according to the type of information that's required. So I don't mind taking on that role right now, although we don't have an official RAO. I'm involved in all information requests in terms of final approval before the information is sent. So it wouldn't be that different from the practice that we're already following. So I would be fine with being elected or nominated as the RAO for the school department. Questions or?
Well, no, I mean, other than the clarifying the fee structure and some of the other things, I thought we were already required to pretty much do this. You know, if you get a freedom of a public request, you have to deal with it, whether you're called the RAO or not.
Exactly. What the change in the law was is that the legislature changed the law, which was last updated like 40 years ago, and had fallen behind. So as one of the components, there were districts, not, I don't think ours, but school districts across the Commonwealth and departments at the municipal level that would just blatantly ignore the law because there was no teeth. So the RAO hopefully adds a little bit of responsibility, which I don't think has ever been an issue here, at least in my tenure, but that's what the reason we got.
Actually, I don't think creating an RAO fixes the problem. It's enforcing the penalties if you don't do it, which is what really has the teeth.
But now you know what to call it. Yeah, very true.
And it also allows the RAO to delegate signing authority. For example, if it was a request specific to special education, I could give the authority to Dr. Detweiler to follow through with that and then just have my final approval before it was sent off.
Yeah.
So it's quite flexible.
Do we need a motion on our end?
Yes, you do.
I make a motion to appoint Kelly as the school district's RAO.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Congratulations.
Getting a title on a job you're already doing.
Yeah.
Welcome to corporate America.
I don't think it comes
Right
with
there.
it.
Happens all the time. All right. We're at the second point of the meeting where interested citizens are welcome to come speak before the school committee. Yep. Just come on up and use the podium, please. Just name and street, and then whatever you want.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jackie Farrell. I'm from Crestview Road. And I originally came to lend moral support to Steve Corelli on the Fable presentation. But, you know, as a parent of some band students and a participant in Music Boosters, I listened with interest to the items you were reading, Mike, that were incremental potential changes in the budget. And when you mentioned the need for increased funding for the specials across Shaker Lane and Russell Street because of the shared nature of those, I kind of expected after that to hear something similar about band, because it has been growing so steadily year over year in terms of the participation. And with band, participation means time on some individual instruction as well as classroom instruction, as well as some capital that's involved and maintenance of instruments, and I don't understand enough about the process to know whether, who advocates for the band across the schools. That I don't understand, because if the principals are having their needs met at the individual schools, and yet, is anybody looking at the program overall and making
So
sure?
what happens is when we do the budget like we did now,
Yeah.
the admin team, which is the principals and the superintendent, the business manager, the sped director and curriculum director, will talk about all of the programs, whether it's specifically in their buildings, wholly in their buildings, or if it's shared resources across buildings. Those will all get debated and discussed. Now, in terms specifically of whether there was discussion about adding to the band instruction resources, doesn't sound like it was, because it wasn't presented to us at budget subcommittee, but I'll leave that to the administration to answer.
Right. We talk about all programs when we're budgeting, and as you're well aware, we have a finite amount of resources, and we have to set priorities. The middle school, high school music program is on our radar, and we're watching enrollments and watching staffing, and also dealing with enrollment increase needs in other courses as well, and expansion of courses, computing science, et cetera, at the high school. So it's a matter of trying to balance everything. I had asked, and we're moving cautiously on this, but I had asked for a review of fee structures for extracurricular activities in general, and for the rationale behind this was our extracurricular activities are morphing into something different. They're becoming more complex and complicated, and we need to determine whether or not the fees that we're charging are sufficient to help support those programs. And we're very grateful for our boosters organizations that help support this, but we also need to be prudent in ensuring that we're doing our part and helping out as much as we can. So teachers, just so you know, during the process, send requests into their individual school principals, and those principals go through those requests, and that becomes part of our discussion around the table as well.
Okay.
So there is a process. It's just trying to figure out where our greatest needs are. It's not that hard to do, and one of the hardest things at times, though, is we identify our needs and then something changes.
Yeah.
We have an influx of students in a particular area, for example, and we have to rethink what we're doing. So, but I appreciate I appreciate you bringing this up, because it has been on our radar at the leadership table for a couple of years. We want to minimize the costs that are incurred to our parents and having school programs. Unfortunately, there's no way we could have no fee structure, so we just have to figure out what that balance is as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go on to subcommittee stuff, can I talk to the principals for a second?
Sure.
So TNN wants to do a weekly segment for like 4 weeks to cover the 4 principals, called like Getting to Know Your Principals, and it's not like what your role at the school is, because everyone, like, student-wise generally understands, like, you're in charge, but more like, what do you do for fun? More of the, like...
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay. They'll get emails at some point.
Awesome.
That's going to be the hardest question they have to answer. What do they do for fun?
Come to school committee meetings. Don't we all come for fun?
Right.
Homework.
All right, subcommittee reports. PMBC?
Yeah, and if you could throw up that spreadsheet I sent you. PMBC continues rolling on. At the budget meeting the other day, they presented items 2 through 7 as items from the school department to place on the PMBC list of funded projects, of which some will be executed by PMBC, some will be executed by Steve there. So I think that process worked, and again, I'm also working with them on trying to look at, we do a multi-year projection so that we can not quite be surprised as projects, come online there. Separately, I probably need to talk with Steve about some things, recommendations that are in the EMG study that we're continuing to defer, like some of the rooftop units, because you've already had them assessed, but there's some other bigger ticket items coming up, mainly some significant floor refinishing type projects, which are in the hundreds of thousands of dollar area there, as well as I think at some point we might have to discuss whether the high school total roof needs to be redone there. So those are big ticket items that I'd like to make sure that we have on a multi-year plan for addressing there. The other thing I brought up with Steve in an email, I think I CC'd you on, Kelly, is whether he's got sufficient resource to actually execute the projects there on it, because a lot of them are occurring within the school, so we need somebody actually within the school that can execute on those projects. So we might need to be thinking about how to resource the execution of those projects.
I mean, as we increase the number of projects, we're really going to have to look at signing somebody on to manage those projects for the summertime or whenever they take place, depending on how big the projects are.
I just bring it up because I know Steve's backlogged a little bit on his normal responsibilities as well as some of the, like the Univent replacement program and things like that. So I want to advocate to get the money, but I want to make sure we advocate to get the resources to execute those projects too.
Thank you. That's great. Appreciate that.
And I don't think it makes sense for somebody from PNBC to try to come in and manage one of these projects when they're inside the school and they're integral to the, how the school's been operating.
Has there been any thought, Darrell, for some of the large projects like roof replacement and boiler replacement, those are things that make me cringe. Has there been a thought about identifying a potential time when it needs to be done and then trying to build up a sufficient amount of capital to take care of a portion of the cost, so that what I've always tried to do when I was a regional superintendent is I always was cognizant about mill rate, and I wanted to keep that mill rate as stable as I could from year to year. And by creating those kinds of pockets of money in terms of pre-planning really help.
So
do that.
PMBC doesn't establish a separate fund to do that. It's funded purely out of the town the town capital budget there. So I know the town has made steps to make like a capital reserve, capital stabilization fund, but I think there's already place markers on that money kind of thing there. So that's why I think it's important for us to put, if we are thinking in 3 or 4 years that we need $1 million roof, that it's on a budget line so that people can say, should we be talking at the town level there, should they be dedicating some of that capital stabilization for that project, or is it going to come out of that year's capital? PMBC that hasn't traditionally participated in that part of it. It's been really more the finance team on the town side.
Have we completed a roof replacement during your time, Mike?
I don't think we have.
No, that's the issue is like the high school is coming up on, it's a 16-year-old roof, probably of a 20-year life cycle.
Right.
I don't know what to I know it probably needs more repairs than what was done. And if it needs more repairs, it will probably be replace the whole roof at that point, type of thing. I mean, that's what we're just talking without, I haven't followed up with Steve on any of the particulars of the details there. But there's some surprising ones there that, like gymnasium reflooring or, and refinishing are surprisingly expensive. Even if you don't have to, hopefully some of our floors that only need to be sanded and refinished.
I think right now,
versus totally
the
replaced.
only one that should be replaced in terms of it's at its end of a truly basketball type of life or any type of significant physical exertion is Russell Street, but it's the least used, so it's fine. It's fine for what youth basketball uses it for, and I think it's fine for what we use it for, Tiger's Den and gym class.
Yeah, Russell Street, a couple of years ago, we had it completely resanded down.
Right, so this report may not be coded for that.
Right.
Like I said, I'm just seeing the holders in there.
Oh, yeah, but you're right, the point is they are expensive.
Yeah.
And if you don't plan, to Kelly's point, if you're not planning and budgeting, when you do have to do it, it's gonna be painful.
Right, so my goal with EMBC next is to calendarize. I've got a version of this spreadsheet that starts projecting some representatives, 18, or 19, and 20, and 21 costs there. So I'd like to, but the full report is way too long, so I want to try to simplify it down to some just key items there so that we can at least, I think as the town looks at 10-year projections and they're saying, oh, our capital needs are going down, it's based on kind of fun, soft data that was provided without much attention to it, and if they're going to make decisions based on decreasing capital needs, and we don't see that, I think it's prudent to us to make sure that they have as good numbers as possible to work off of.
And it's easy to not have a roof on your radar, such as the high school, because it still seems fairly new, and it's not. It's just kept in good shape. So I'm glad you pointed that out. So.
Yeah. All right, good. All right. Budget Subcommittee we already took care of earlier in the agenda. Policy Subcommittee.
We have our first group of policies. We have a lot of policies. So
The Alex Pratt era?
Yes, it is. It starts now. This group is pretty simple. These are the policies that required absolutely no change. Next meeting we'll have the rest of the B policies, which required either very minor changes, typos, very brief language changes, and then a handful that were a little more in depth. These policies are, we checked them out with the MASC guide. They almost all of them were identical. A couple of them were not, but we were satisfied with them, and they don't require any changes.
So you'll also put reviewed in the dates on.
Yes. Yes.
I critique your process here.
In the Baker era, did that happen at the first for the presentation, or after we had read it for a third time?
No, I usually put in parentheses pending,
Okay.
and then updated them
Excellent.
there so that I give you a hard time.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right, can I entertain a motion?
All right, make a motion for this first reading to follow reviewed policies: BA, BD, FA, FE, BEC, BEDD, BEDF, BEDG, BEDH, BG, BGB, BEGG, BHC, BIA, BIBA, BID, BJ, and BK.
Now it's my turn to give you a tough time. I heard F.
Yeah, you said FE and it's BE.
No, I didn't. I'm pretty sure. Roll the tape back. I think you guys misheard.
When was the last time you got your eyes checked?
Put it to reflect. All right. So slightly amended. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Just the second part of the D there. For your next eye exam.
All right, so that takes care of that. Do we have anything else we need to discuss?
I just wanted to double check with the school committee in terms of the joint FinCon BOS meeting that was changed from January 17th to February 7th. Does that work for everybody?
Sure.
I think I updated my calendar with, you sent that note out, right?
I did,
Yeah,
yes.
that was fine with me.
Excellent.
All right, that it? Do we want an executive session?
If we could, I would like to go through some past minutes and release them.
Okay. And we will be going into more executive session this year because we're entering in negotiations, so let's go ahead and do that.
Did you want to do an update on negotiations as well,
Mr.
Chairman, in this one or no?
Yeah, we probably will. In the executive session. There's not a lot to talk about, but we'll do it.
Okay.
Will you come back?
No, we will not.
So there is a motion.
Yeah, I got it. I make a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of contract negotiations and approval of executive session minutes with no intention to return to open session.
Okay, motion made second, and this is a roll call vote. Alex?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Yeah?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.